is a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, my apologies to Jake and the gang here. I spilled coffee all over the kitchenette out there, so I was cleaning that up, so I missed a little crossover there. I had a great deal of crossover stuff ready for Jake, and I left it all in the kitchenette floor this afternoon. I thought sure I'd dump the pot. Apparently I did not dump the pot, thus big time overflow, and that's problematic. But hey, that's what happens. I cleaned it up. It was my mess. However, no crossover conversation. Tomorrow we'll do that. I think Jake tomorrow is at the Hoosier Hardwood Fest at the Boone County Fairgrounds. I'm at the Union Jack Pub for a tavern tour stop. That is coming up tomorrow at 3 with Brent Halverson, of course, in Broad Ripple. Busy show. We got to be busy today because I bail out of here at 5 o'clock. And actually, I don't bail myself. I quit this one and then start the other one. So after this is going to be the Colts pregame huddle. And this evening, me, Casey Valier, and former Colts wide receiver Bill Brooks all in studio. I don't think there's going to be a Gorman sighting this evening. And then, of course, they got your countdown to kickoff coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. That's Matt and Rick and Lara from Philadelphia. The latest in the ongoing Jonathan Taylor saga, according to Ian Rappaport, is as follows. That the fences are pretty much... Now, he did not absolutely rule anything out. Nothing was ruled out, so obviously this came from the representation of Jonathan Taylor there, or at least somebody on his side. I hate saying camp. Somebody on his side of things. So clearly that took place, and that the fences are about as pinned in, hemmed in, ready to be closed, no turning back, no going back. Irreparable damage as you can get. And that's where we are right now. And I think that maybe some of you felt that. And there's still a back and forth going on as far as, who's going to have the last laugh on this. And I guess we shall see. So I guess what I'm telling you is this, too. It's not surprising. Yeah, we have gotten to that point. I think Stephen Holder had mentioned that we really don't know just how, the two sides feel about each other in the negative. I think we've talked about that enough. I think we pretty much know. I do. I think there's been a lot of inspiration for us to know just that. Thus, that's exactly where we are right now. So it does look like what Jim Irsay said, 3 or so weeks ago plus here about not trading Jonathan Taylor. It does look like that this may end up being the last gasp. Yeah, the relationship with the Colts and Jonathan Taylor strained, which we knew that was strained. Didn't need Ian Rappaport to tell us that. But the quote, hard to imagine he'd come back to play for them. Again, that sounds like that comes from representation, as I mentioned right there. I'll be surprised if he plays for them. It is possible. I just don't know what will happen. This is a relationship that is not good. Not good. And I think we can all gather that. Rappaport also went on to say that he hasn't gotten an indication that the Colts are willing to do anything contract-wise. It's hard for me to imagine he just comes back and everything is fine. Anybody out there believing that it was going to be fine? I guess if you come back, then you feel that you have to. Yeah, this is like the last gasp, the final straw. Maybe move off that number 1 pick, make this happen because this isn't going to work. Get that out there to court of public opinion. You got some of these reported teams now 6-0 interested, maybe a top 2 that have more interest than everybody else. Most certainly not offering anywhere near a number 1 pick. So you see if you can't rattle some cages here and maybe see a decrease in the price tag and get something done in terms of the Colts viewing something as acceptable in a deal right here. That seems like that's where we are, does it not? That's what I gather when I read this a little bit earlier, or at least first heard it, watching it, and then read it. Just kind of seems like this is a little bit more of that dialogue that you're going to get. This is where we are now. We'll see if the Colts come down in price. You just sit on him and find him all year, I guess, right? Have this hanging around. You're going to be on the field, on the sideline coming up later on tonight. That should be great with Amazon Prime and RTV6 if you're watching at home. Anybody out there think that maybe it's overblown the effect that he has on this team? I'm not suggesting that's what I'm saying. I'm just wanting to know if anybody thinks it's overblown. I'm assuming his teammates still like him. And I think they all bond together in terms of trying to get what they feel that they deserve. To me, I think the only way we're going to see this affect the team is when things get real. Like right now, when people say, well, why did he make the trip? You know, he's having an ill effect on the team. I don't know if he's having an ill effect on his teammates, but it will have an ill effect on this team when they start the season. That's when you're really going to see it. If he's not playing, if he's not a part of it. You can put all the stats you want to together on how you believe this thing is going to work, but there is no doubt that that's necessary. I just don't know if I completely buy, oh, man, he can't be on the bus, he can't be on the plane, he can't go, you don't want him around there because this guy is just bad news right now. And he's a bad seed within this team. And let me tell you this. If there was a dude, let's go back when he first popped into the NFL when they traded up to select him in round 2. Let's go back to, after he was benched, remember his rookie season, and then go back to the run the damn ball wearing hat era. Go back to that for a moment. The last person in the world you would have ever thought would be in this situation is number 28 right here. And he can now get in line with all the others that at that moment you thought, well, this is the last person I would ever think would do something like this. Victor Oladipo, Paul George, Andrew Luck. The last thing I ever thought. And again, that's why I remind you, no longer can you say never. Because we've all lived it. In fact, we have an anniversary on this date to where the memory is still firmly entrenched. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that Saturday night, this date, things went a-spinning. Yeah, I still look back on that. And so, yeah, the Luck folks and the Colts thought that rumor was going to stay silent all weekend. Okay, good move. It's a good plan right there. And not pop during the game. Not pop during the game. So he has to walk off to a chorus of boos in his own stadium. Yeah, it's funny. You look back on that again. That's the anniversary of the Andrew Luck retirement announcement. And everybody nationally has made note of that. So I might as well jump in just for a second. When you think about it, people always say, well, it wasn't the crowd booing him, or there's always that excuse. It was Bears fans, or it was the crowd, booing the situation, not him. No, they were booing him. They were booing him for making that decision from what they had heard, because everybody had either a phone or somebody had passed along the information in the stands. They were absolutely booing him because they knew in the stands, much like everybody else knew, and here's where we are at the tail end of that right now, still fighting it. So you knew what was coming. I mean, even fans can have a bad day, and I'm not going to suggest they had a bad day. They're just mad. That was their reaction. What? So we went from having an elite-level quarterback to now Jacoby Brissett. Okay, great. Thanks. 2 weeks before the start of the season. Great. Didn't Peyton Manning say 2 weeks ago that he was good to go and in a great state of mind and ready to play? Manning was a bit out of shape about that. But I always find that interesting, too. They weren't booing the player. They were booing the situation. They were flat booing the player. And whether or not they were liquored up, which I'm assuming they were or whatever, they were booing the player. when he was walking off. That is a not-so-sweet anniversary that nobody, and I mean nobody around here, should be celebrating because, again, that started this downhill slide to where this organization, this team, and its fan base are hoping that one of these days it actually gets the opportunity to dig out of. Still trying. Still trying, and now you have this Jonathan Taylor stuff again. I'll be surprised if he plays for them. It's possible. I just don't know it will happen. This is a relationship that is not good. Not good. You back up a not good with a not good. And certainly that is problematic. That was Ian Rappaport a little bit earlier today, of course, coming up later on tonight, that final preseason game in Philadelphia for the Colts. Beyond, this conversation, beyond the non-celebratory anniversary note that I just brought up regarding the Colts fans, and organizationally speaking, what are we all looking for tonight? Just outside of the quarterback thing. See, this is why you know that it was important on Saturday that fans really wanted to see him play. And this is where fans also get it, because you also understand that he does need more snaps than just anybody out there. So having him out there for a series, just as many snaps as you can get. You don't get to use, practice is always good for the player whenever it fits your storyline. Does that make sense to you? Like, normally, practice is always good, especially for somebody that inexperienced. But to suggest, well, it didn't really matter because he practiced early in the week and it was only going to be maybe a series or two anyway. Yeah, it does matter. It does matter. Yeah, clearly it mattered to a lot of fans, 60+ thousand in the stands. The ones that weren't Bears fans, it certainly didn't matter to them. You talk about a guy that we're going to see, and this is what... We'll see what the television draw is going to be this evening via Amazon Prime or certainly RTV6 in terms of your interest, but it is all surrounding the quarterback. I mean, Manning was under a microscope. Luck was under a microscope. I don't know with those two if we're going to see those two, anybody else around here under the microscope that Richardson's going to be under. It's going to be play after play. It's going to be so up and down. I mention this all the time. You are going to get one moment when you, oh, wow, and you think this is great, and you're going to have 3 moments that back that up, and you're thinking this is not going to work. What the hell was that? Such a unique situation. But besides Anthony Richardson, what else are we looking for? Here's one thing, and if I'm allowed to bring this up, again, depending upon just how many ones are out there, especially skill position ones, with what we know and what we haven't seen from Anthony Richardson, because he just doesn't have the resume built yet. Just not enough games, not enough plays, not enough throws. The one thing that I'm going to look for, that it has been a long damn time around here, and that is these skill position players being able to catch a pass that is not thrown right to them. I mean, it has been a struggle. Like T.Y. Hilton would certainly do that, but has it not been a struggle for a while? I don't know what you can glean from a year ago because, either the quarterback was being chased down and sacked or fumbling it. One of the two. I don't know if you can get anything from that, but that's what I'm looking for. These skill position players, if they're able to get outside what is the normal catch window or catch radius, how difficult of catches can these guys make? And one of these days here relatively soon, we're going to be talking about Michael Pittman Jr. being the guy in that category, the guy in that capacity. And that is still something I think we all would come to the conclusion, right? In similar fashion, that he still needs to prove. Tough catches and tough situations. But it will be few and far between when that football's thrown on the money. So if it's anywhere around that catch window, that catch radius, you're going to be able to go get it. I mean, we saw with Alec Pierce, and really that was a well-thrown ball. That wasn't even outside of the catch radius. That was just a bad play and a drop by Alec Pierce. That's somebody else you're going to have to count on. But I'm talking about the skill position players wide out. I'm talking about the tight ends. And not just so much their play, but being able to help their guy out. That's what we've talked about with Jonathan Taylor, man. His production, what he has been, and that's what Richardson needs. He needs offensive players, his teammates, to help him out. Wide receivers, tight ends need to help him out a little bit. Now, that's what expedites the entire situation. That's what gets you out front and not lagging behind and still wondering, for example, going into year number 2. And that's the last thing that you want. But that's what I'm looking for tonight. And we'll see how much of an opportunity you get in this preseason game 3. But just in general terms, when those guys are out there, knowing that football logically is not always going to be put in the right spot, the perfect spot, just how good these guys are on this team, because all we've done is really talk down. Talking about the lack of skill throughout this roster, comparing rosters around the NFL to that of the Colts. These guys are going to have to prove it. And, what that does is help out your guy. Help out your guy evolve into hopefully you feeling good about it and not going into, for example, year number 2 and still not knowing, because nobody wants that. That's one thing I'm looking for coming up later on tonight. I don't know how much else we're going to get defensively, considering it looks like the Eagles aren't playing this, certainly with their starters in mind. I guess you'll just have to find out when things are live what that secondary is going to look like. Scary part about it is secondary, when they've looked good, most of the time they've looked good against themselves. So that's always tough to come up with. But I'll start right there. Skill position players and, being able to surprisingly make some tough catches. But you're going to have to. And we live in a world with wide receiver, with tight ends right now. Anybody, really. Anybody that's an eligible receiver, if it gets anywhere near your hands, you're supposed to catch it now. Wasn't always that way, but certainly is now. And you're going to have a lot of footballs thrown in that general vicinity that aren't necessarily going to be near the hands. You're going to have to work to get it. See if this group can come along. That's one spot that I'll start watching. Coming up later on tonight, and again, 5 p.m., it is the Colts pregame huddle. You got me, you got Casey Vallier, and Bill Brooks coming up here on the 5 o'clock hour. Cannot wait for that. All right, anything else you guys want to hit? We certainly can at 239-1070 regarding the latest on Jonathan Taylor, an anniversary that is not so flattering, that nobody really wants to talk about around here, and I don't blame you. Now, Reds last night. How about the Reds with a sweep over the Angels? Yeah, the Angels are circling the drain with injuries with Trout, with Ohtani. But that was something that the Reds needed. Cubs get a win yesterday. Yeah, the Reds have a schedule. I believe they go to Arizona, then San Francisco, and then get the Cubs again. And all 3 of those teams, along with the Reds, are right there in the National League wild card hunt. Yeah, the Reds got a lot of work to do. But 3 straight against the Angels and 2 yesterday in that day-night doubleheader that they had because of the inclement weather. We can hit that if you guys like the rest of the NFL, any of the storylines going on there. What might logically be of these 6 teams, the often, in this case, the most often mentioned trade partner. And if the Colts ever at all come off that number 1, if they don't go out and get something, anybody willing just to see him kind of sit? I don't think he will, because he's not going to get paid, but isn't there a point in time when if you don't get offered a number 1, do they have to go? Like, we've been talking about the Colts in terms of being in a strong position, having all the leverage. I mean, is there some point where you just got to put your hands up and say, especially if it's as bad as Ian Rappaport mentioned a little bit earlier today, I mean, for the sake of your situation, don't you have to do something about it? Again, I don't know how much of a detriment to his team he might be right now. Because I bet those dudes still like him. And I bet those guys want to see him get his, no matter how he can get his. But if the team is struggling and that is clear that that is a need that's not there, that might paint a bit of a different picture as far as that's concerned. So stuff we can talk about at 239-1070. Mike Chappell's been all over this. He's going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Josh Tolentino, correct? Josh Tolentino from the Philadelphia Inquirer. James, is that accurate? Coming up at 4:30. Get an angle from the Philly side, an angle from the Colts side with Mike coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. I didn't really know this until earlier in the week, but I'd recognized that PopCon is in town. And one of the actors or celebrities that's a part of this has been on the show before, and I remembered it too. And then somebody, I think it was Childress a little bit earlier this morning, in fact, had reminded me once again that the last time we had this particular actor on the show, that he did a great interview while with his family at Disneyland. And a lot of you, especially over the past 10 years at least, have become more in tune, and he's become, more of a recognizable actor to you because of The Walking Dead, because of Guardians of the Galaxy, a Suicide Squad. You watch any of that? You a Guardians of the Galaxy guy? You know who I'm talking about when I'm talking about the actor we're going to bring on the show here?
Oh yeah, he played Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Now, what exactly is Yondu? What's Yondu?
He's an alien.
An alien.
He's a blue alien.
See, I know our actor here more because of JFK, because of 8 Men Out, which was filmed back in 1988 here in Indianapolis, because of Mississippi Burning, more because of Mallrats, more because of that. But he's probably cultivated even a bigger following now because of what you're talking about here too, right? Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh, yeah. Big movie trilogy, actually.
Yeah, so 3 of them.
3 of them. I don't know if he was in the third one. I know he was in the first 2.
Suicide Squad 2?
Yes, he was in that as well.
All right, then. Michael Rooker is going to join us, the actor. It was a number of years ago he was on. He was at Disneyland with his family. It was awesome. And I just happen to think he's a really good dude. He's coming to town this weekend. In fact, Saturday and Sunday he's going to be here. And you can check him out down at the convention center at PopCon is what it's called again, PopCon at the convention center. And Michael Rooker is going to join us coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Actor Michael Rooker. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm sorry. I almost left this out, and somewhere David Daring just freaked out. Rowdy Burns. He played the role of Rowdy Burns. Days of Thunder. Most of you, probably my age, know him for being Rowdy Burns in Days of Thunder. Michael Rooker, bottom of the hour. Mike Chappell and Josh Tolentino covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer coming up too. God, Hoosier Hardwood Festival tickets to give away before we bail out of here at 5 o'clock as well. 239-1070, email address, jmv1075thefan.com. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live. Hope you guys are enjoying the day in there. I'll jump in there with you guys coming up in just a second. I mentioned your calls. The stream, the app, HD Radio at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Mike Chappell, top of the hour. That's 4 o'clock, and Josh Tolentino at 4:30. We got to get you set on both sides tonight for this preseason finale for both the Colts and the Eagles in Philadelphia. Yeah, normally Mr. Blue Sky is a really good song, and regarding the Taylor situation, here's what I gather from most of you out there right now. Most of you are just saying, hey, can you just get something done because I'm over it? I mean, even if you're of the opinion, like I am, that you're going to lose a lot and you can't make that up, this seems like that maybe to this point you are absolutely worn out. I think I think they're going to have to come down from their first round pick price tag, but I still don't know how many teams are going to be out there willing to give very much. And that, in fact, will be too bad. And it's really not going to hit you, I don't think. That won't hit you until, you see this team, and if they really struggle, which is, I think, most of our opinions out there, if they really struggle offensively, really struggle running the football, that's when that will significantly hit you. And that's going to be unfortunate. Josh Tolentino of the Philadelphia Inquirer, Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. Remember, locally tonight, RTV6 if you want to watch it. Amazon Prime, the originator, right here if you want to hear it with Matt and Rick and Lara. Countdown to kickoff begins tonight at 7 o'clock. Michael Rooker, the actor, in a second. Simon is going to start the show at 239-1070. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm great, John. Thanks for taking my call.
You know it.
Hey, listen, man, I've been listening to this Jonathan Taylor saga since the beginning, right?
Sure.
And, both locally and nationally. And, one thing that I don't ever hear brought up, and listen, I may get roasted for this, but I got to bring it up. What Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay are dealing with now is no different than anyone who is a business owner or in a leadership position or just a coworker of a millennial. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is of the age. I mean, he falls in that millennial bracket, and the approach that he's taken through this whole process is no different than what anybody else deals with. Now, with that being said, as a business owner and a colleague of millennials, I mean, it can be dynamic, right? I mean, look at the experience that Jake had with Kevin, or you had with Tony D back in the day. The younger generation. And I'm the same age as you, right? So it's not like I'm that far removed. Hell, I think I'm closer to their age many times than what I really am. But it's a different mentality. It's a different type of leadership. Now, look, I think he's dead wrong in all of this, and I think he will, much like Jeff George when he spoke with Jay, he will regret this decision at some point. But what they're going through is no different than what anybody else in a leadership role in this environment deals with. And I think there's a point to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just has an opinion on himself and his worth. And probably above all else, he has been angered because the Colts are so unwilling to make any movement whatsoever. Hey, Simon, thank you very much. Call in again. I think what this has done, this has just kind of escalated to a point of no return, as what Ian Rappaport brought up a little bit earlier today. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, you know him very well. Just decades of incredible acting, incredible work. Going to be in town for PopCon this weekend, Saturday and Sunday here in Indianapolis. Back to the show again. Michael Rooker joins us today. Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing yourself?
I could not be better now that you're here with us. You don't remember this, I'm sure, but I was reminded of this. You have been on this show before, and the last time you were on with me, you were at Disneyland. You did a great interview with me at Disneyland right in front of the steamboat, I think, right there. The steamboat whistle or horn or whatever that is kept going off, I think, behind you right there. But you did a fantastic interview with me. I don't know what this was, backing up. I'm assuming it's probably something like PopCon this weekend, but just a fantastic interview years ago when you were at Disneyland at the time.
Oh, I do not remember anything. anything from those years. Sorry.
Well, I did want to ask you about this because it seems like you get to Indianapolis more than occasionally, and don't you?
I do, actually. Yeah.
8 Men Out, late 80s. You were here filming that. I had John Cusack on this show year before last, and he was talking about his experience of being here and filming here in town and some of those memories that he has. What are some of the memories you have about Indy back then when you had to stay here longer than just the weekend?
Well, back then we were busy. I mean, we were working every day, so we didn't get a chance. Well, some of the guys actually got a chance to go out and have some fun.
Well, I've heard those stories, yes, because Charlie Sheen was part of that group too. Yes.
Yeah, he was. We had probably all the young, hottest actors in Hollywood, and they were. I was like one of the last ones to be cast, and I was cast out of Chicago. I lived in Chicago at the time, and we got down there and had a blast, man. I mean, it's a great city. It's a racing city, and I did a movie called Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping we get some a lot of racing fans that'll come into the show this weekend.
And
Who knows? We'll see.
I'm sure you will. And Rowdy Burns is obviously one of the characters of the past for you in Days of Thunder. Where does that rank as far as your recognizable roles to your fans and to people that have seen the film out there? Where does that rank as far as your resume of films is concerned?
Well, it's pretty high in my book. I mean, it's always one of my favorite. When people ask me what's my favorite, I don't really have a one favorite film I've done, but I do have several that keep rolling around in my mind of boy, oh boy, would I like to do a remake or a continuation of that story, and Days of Thunder is one of those. 8 Men Out, of course, we did right there in town.
Yeah.
But I think it ranks up there, man. I got about 4 or 5 that are that are in my favorite book, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you've done certainly recently from, the Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad, it's been amazing because it's kind of like it has. I just played back in before you came on ELO, and because it is so readily available music now, whether it's Spotify or Pandora or Sirius XM, it's not as hard as it was when we were all growing up to hear music of the past. You had to actually work for it, and now you really don't. And you look at your career and, just the younger category of fans that recognize you from their favorite films that I just talked about right now. I mean, it's like it has to be energizing for you, is it not, to know that this is where you are in your career, and now even younger, generationally speaking, the fans know exactly who you are in their favorite films here.
Well, you know what? I was at a restaurant one time with Sean Gunn. He did a very popular TV show. He's going to be there with us this weekend, too. And he did a very popular TV show that a lot of the young kids, like the teenagers and the preteens and the teenagers, really, really adored. But anyway, that being said, we're at dinner one night, and there are these 3 lovely preteen teenage girls just sort of standing and giggling and looking at us at the table. He goes, "Oh, you know what? They're going to want to come over here and say about his TV show." Instead, they came over and said, "You're Michael Rooker. You played Rowdy Burns in Days of Thunder." And I'm like, "Sweetheart, that was way, way, way before your time." And he says, and they were saying like, our dad makes us watch that every weekend. So it ended up being they were Days of Thunder fans, and we had done the movie probably 20 years before they were born.
That's awesome too. That's going to make you feel good and on a much lower level. like when I get from somebody that says, hey, I grew up listening to you because my dad did in the car taking me to school. That's extra special. It really is. Because, again, you are reaching a whole new demographic, a whole new generation of fans that maybe you thought you wouldn't reach once upon a time.
Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm like, and the mom and dad were over in the other section of the restaurant. And so they eventually came over too. So I was thrilled, and I'm always thrilled when people recognize me, and it's always fun to meet folks literally on the street that'll probably never see me again, and I enjoy it myself. I don't shy away from it, so I enjoy people a lot. I've always been a people person. I was a lifeguard for 3 years in Chicago, and folks will recognize me even way back then on the street. And hey, aren't you that guard that works at North Avenue Beach? I mean, yeah, and it's kind of cool.
I think that's how Sam Elliott started out as a lifeguard, too, and then got into it. Although he was in Southern California, I believe. That's how he got started. I didn't want to ask you that. And again, Michael Rooker, the actor, joins us. You moved from Alabama to Chicago. So you've got the Deep South in your blood, and also, obviously, the Midwest and Chicago. Did those first opportunities you get pop out of Chicago? Did you get those first hirings out of Chicago, working out of Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to a school called the Goodman School of Drama, and the year I got there was their very first year of moving their entire theater department to DePaul University there. And now they've changed since they've changed the name to the theater school at DePaul. And it's quite a beautifully traditional training. It was a great way for me to get into the arts, and I had already been to college. I kind of wasn't happy with where things were going, and I went back to school. I went back and auditioned to get into the theater school there. So there you have it. And now I got most of my beginning jobs out of Chicago.
Well,
I call it my home. I mean, I still have a place there. So.
It's interesting to see out of Chicago. Like, My Bodyguard, for example, is one I remember from 1980, which was entirely with auditions, and then the casting was held in Chicago. Lucas in the mid 80s was held, I think, in Chicago as well. And you would always see these familiar faces, whether they were lead actors or supporting actors, and you kind of knew that was the growth out of the Chicagoland acting area right there for those films.
My goodness,
yeah.
I think Chicago actors and directors and folks in the business now, be it theater business or film business, TV business, a lot of folks came out of Chicago, out of the training programs they have there. Not only the Goodman School of Drama and the theater school at DePaul. The Northwestern has a great theater department as well, and so we have it's a very, very large community, theater community there, and arts community. So we were knocking down doors, man. I mean, we were chewing up the theater and the film business as well back then. So yeah, and it's still very. Chicago actors are still very, very popular.
PopCon Indy is coming up this weekend, and our guest Michael Rooker, the actor, will be there on Saturday and Sunday. That's downtown at the Indiana Convention Center. You can go to popcon.us and find out what days and where he is and where you can find him and check him out as well. Walking Dead, when you got offered that role, it was already going, I believe, but when you got offered that role, did you ever think it was going to reach the levels of popularity in which it has? And then, the spinoffs and still going strong. And I know, obviously, your character's no longer with it, but did you ever think it was going to reach those heights in which it did?
Not in a million years. I mean, I started, actually, I was in the first, the pilot. and then the first 1, 2, 3 episodes, and then my character got hooked. I was up on the rooftop, and I got away, and you don't see me for a few episodes, but my character comes back, and when I watched the pilot, after we had already done it, and I watched it, and as I was watching, I'm like, oh, geez, here goes another one. It'll never go. There's no way I thought it'd ever go. I mean, when they started pulling the guts out of the poor horse, I was like, no, ain't going. This ain't going. Look, don't get me wrong. I like horror. I like the gore and some, and I like it all, but when I saw that, I was like, ugh, there's no way this is going. There's no way in a million years. And I thought, well, there goes a pilot down the tubes again. I'd done a few of them, and they never really got picked up. And this one I thought was just going to be the same way. They're never going to pick this up. And lo and behold, they absolutely picked it up, and it caught on, and people were enthralled, and they just were glued to their TV sets.
Yeah.
And of course, my character was just for me, he was the perfect character in the world to have. I mean, I got to say and do almost anything I wanted to do and say.
It seems like that if there was a character up an actor's alley, that would have been the one for you right there. To me, is when I watch you do that.
My friend was the casting director, and she called me, Lisa Mayfin Cannon down in Wilmington, North Carolina, and she called me and she said, Rooker, there's this role, and she could barely breathe. There's this role. It's written for you. It's written for you, dude. You got to do this. I'm going to send you the script. You read it right away. And I read it, and I called her back. I said, man, this is kind of crazy. I like it, though. Yeah, I dig it a lot. And she goes, there's just one problem. I go, what? What's the problem? Well, one of the producers, he's got this thing for you, and I go, oh, I take it it's not a positive thing. He goes, oh no, it's not positive at all. Something about some project you did or you were gonna do and you ended up not doing. It's like 15 years ago or something. I said, what? 15 years ago? What the hell? What's his name? So it was Frank Darabont.
Right. Yeah.
And he goes,
yeah.
Oh my God, he's got a thing for me. Is that why I haven't been cast in these last 15 years in his project?
What was the issue?
The issue was back when I did Cliffhanger.
Okay.
Me and Frank were talking about doing a project, and I loved the project. I was going to do it, and everything, and then all of a sudden, this is back in the day when I was like a poor dude. I barely made a living. Okay, and so all of a sudden I get this offer, and which is cool, Frank's offer, but then I get another offer that is like going to pay me 10 times the money that I've ever made in my life. Okay? All right. So my agents are like, dude, you got to go with the money. You got to go with the money. I said, well, what are we going to do? I have already agreed. And, I was like really wringing my hands. And I was like, it was upsetting to go the other way now. Simply because of money. It wasn't simply because of money. It was still a nice, fun role, too. But they said, don't worry, we'll call him. And I had to, leave town, I had to leave. I should have left town 3 days ago to get there, right? And it was over in Italy. And so they said, we'll take care of everything. We'll call him. We'll deal with it. So they called him and they dealt with it, but they dealt with it in nope, he's out. Goodbye.
Yeah, he still left you on. They still left you on the hook, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. And he felt bad. He felt really bitter about that for a long time. And here I am, all these years, thinking, oh, they settled everything. I'll call Frank when I get back into town. We'll go have lunch. And he never returned my phone calls. So I was like, oh. And I, you just move on with your career, move on with your life. But I find out later on with The Walking Dead that this is the producer on The Walking Dead. He's the showrunner. He's the guy. He's the main guy. And he has this thing. So I wrote him a letter and basically explained my side of the story. And he believed me. And hence, the rest is history. I got in the show, and we when the first day we met on set, it was as if we had never been apart or angry or he had any kind of animosity. It was like old home week. That's the same. Frank and I, like we're like. You meet these people and you think, I feel like I feel like I know you, dude. I mean, you were so close right away. We were so close right away. And so that's what hurt him in the past, because we were so close. And then all of a sudden I go off and do another movie.
And it works out in the end. Yeah.
I don't blame him. I didn't blame him at all.
By the way, Frank Darabont, for those of out there that may not know, Shawshank Redemption. So he carried, and other things. He still does a significant amount of clout for real right there. Popcorn.
Indeed, and I love him dearly too. So now we're old pals again now. So everything is hunky dory.
Oh man,
it was hit or miss whether or not I was going to be able to do The Walking Dead. But things happen. And my casting director, Lisa May, that lady, she had my back, man. 99.99% of casting people in this business, as soon as they say no, I don't think so, they just move on. But she wouldn't let it go. She says, no. I'm telling you, man, this guy is right for this role, and so
perfect.
I don't know of any other actor in Hollywood that would chop his own hand off. I'm like a wild coyote. You got me tied down. I'll chew my arm off to get away. I mean, this is who I am. Okay, and she knew it. And
you were perfect for it. Absolutely. So, at PopCon Indy, Saturday and Sunday, actor Michael Rooker is going to be in town. You are a wonderful conversation, as always, man. I appreciate you jumping on here. I hope we do it again, man. It's even more memorable, but you're always awesome to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And come on out, everybody. We're going to have a blast, and we always do. And I enjoy the heck out of this stuff, so come on.
All right, Michael, thank you again. Enjoy your time here in Indy this weekend.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Michael Rooker, he is a wonderful dude. I'm over. Let me take a break. We'll come back. I'll reset with you next.
The Fan.
Oh, man, if you missed any of it, the podcasts with actor Michael Rooker, who's going to be in town this weekend, you got to do that, too. I mean, do it. So good, and I almost felt like it was almost a rush for me as far as, kind of a hustle to make sure we get back on time because we're cut out an hour today. But PopCon this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Hey, go up to Michael Rooker if you see him and make sure you tell him that you heard him here. He's just an awesome guy. And we could have gone on for at least an hour. Absolutely incredible stuff. All right, quick break. We'll come back right with the clock. We'll get Josh Tolentino, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and Mike Chappell all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. 93.5, 107. outstanding. If you missed it, podcast 1075thefan.com. You can go there and check it out. Now, the Frank Darabont story. He's just a really easygoing, easy to talk to dude, and has been in everything. He actually grabbed, how should I put this? The satchel, or his satchel was grabbed by Gene Hackman in Mississippi Burning, where he played Frank Bailey. Tombstone, we mentioned Rowdy Burns and Days of Thunder. And it's almost like a rejuvenating thing, too, with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, more recognizable with a younger generation. Just great work and an even better dude. PopCon this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. You can meet Michael Rooker. Tell him that you heard him right here. That was outstanding. Meantime, Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from CBS 4 and Fox 59. Mike Chappell, he does join us. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you? I remember him in Cliffhanger with Stallone.
Yes.
You know, he's one of those guys that he's been in a lot of good things, and you see his face and think, oh, yeah, him. Really, really a good actor. Really good. I don't know him personally, obviously, but cool. It seems like a really cool guy.
He was here with 8 Men Out. And I remember talking to John Cusack about it. John Cusack,
my friend was in that. Yes, yes.
John Cusack told me, it was funny. I had him on a year before last, and he said, "So Sheen and I would frequent this bar, and it was inside a hotel, just dance club inside a hotel." And I said, "Was it called Quincy's?" And he said, "Yes, it was Quincy's in the Adams Mark. It's where Cusack and apparently Charlie Sheen and some of those other guys hung out." I don't know if Michael Rooker was with those guys, but certainly a long period of time working really hard. I think the temperatures were cold as well, right? It was was it late fall when it was filmed here, I think, in the late 80s?
I think so. It's been a long time, but a guy I went to high school with was involved in that. So, and just kind of, it's kind of cool when you see it and you think, hey, that's here in Indy.
Yeah. Everybody had to dress up. It was like a casting call for fans just to come out and dress up in like early 1900s garb and sit in the stands. So. Yep. True. All right. Speaking of garb here, the latest, at least Ian Rappaport says that maybe you're at a point right now where the fences cannot be mended between both Jonathan Taylor and his side of things and the Colts. Is that where this thing is?
You know, it's never say never. When you say it can't be mended, well, what happens if there's no trade? You know, I mean, then what happens? So, you know, about 3 weeks ago, I thought Taylor would be here for opening day. Now I think it seems like it will be hard for him to come back. For them to have him back, it seems like there's so much. It's obvious to me that he doesn't want to be here from his actions and from talking to people with the team. And I think the hardest thing is when a guy tries to force his way out and it doesn't happen. I mean, how do you welcome him back into the locker room? I mean, the players probably will, and if that happens and he has a great year, then people forget about it. But sometimes you get to the point of no return. That's why, you know, I've been told they want a first-round pick or something equal, a second. Remember they got rid of Marshall Faulk with a 2 and a 5. You know, maybe that's enough to get it done. I don't know, but I know they don't want to give him away, you know, just dump him, you know, for a 4 or 5 or whatever. But I've always thought the much, much harder phase to this wasn't the compensation, because, again, it may get to the point the Colts will say, fine, we'll take whatever, 3, whatever. That would be hard for them to do. But to me, the harder part is that team giving him whatever compensation he wants. Well, someone with the team floated 3 years, $40 million. But remember, the team never offered him anything. There was never an extension offer, which really set all this in motion. Whenever it was in April, in May, when they had to sit down with him, and remember in April's when he was, you know, I want to be here. I put pen to paper. That's my obligation. Well, then shortly thereafter, that's when the team said, well, we're not going to do that. And he had to feel betrayed. And that's when the initial trade request came, and then then everything hit the fan when we get to training camp. So, and here we are. But the difficult part is going to be that team giving Taylor what he wants, not so much giving the Colts what they want. Although, in Stephen Holder had a good story on ESPN that I sort of confirm, which I don't need to confirm what Stephen has. Stephen's a smart guy. But the six teams and have contacted the Colts, and 2 have talked to trade. These teams would not, especially when you get to the trade package part of it, these teams are not going to go that far unless they are at some level willing to give Taylor something. So let's keep that in mind. Where again, what I say is the most difficult part. Maybe, again, if a team, Miami, the Rams, somebody, Philly, I saw that name was thrown out there now. If they're at the point that, hey, we're willing to give you this, that, and the other, well, they're not going to do that unless they've got a pretty good idea that they can satisfy Jonathan Taylor's demands. Unless, let's just take the extreme thing that he is so PO'd and so much doesn't want to be here, that he'll go somewhere without an extension. I don't think that'll happen. But on the other side, if a team's willing to give up a pretty good draft pick, I don't think they're going to do it for a one-year rental. So there's so many things that have to be thought about. And then, oh, by the way, he's on PUP. He hasn't been on the field practicing since December. So I sort of think it's going to happen because I just think they've reached the point of no return.
Yeah.
But about the time you think that, nothing happens, and then what do you do? So and these guys, the Colts, they're smart people. They are, whether you like their personnel moves, whatever. These guys are smart people. They have all these scenarios talked out. If there's a trade, if there's not, if he's on PUP, whatever. They know what they're going to do, what they want to do. So, but again, I was told that by Tuesday, if he can't get a trade done by Tuesday, then the ball's back in the Colts court, and then they have to decide what they do when they cut their roster to 53, because then it matters. It really does. If he's on PUP, it's at least 4 games he misses. Now he gets paid, but it just takes it to that next level. The good thing is that in the next few days we're going to know something on how this is going to be resolved.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 is with us. You think the Colts, obviously they put that first-round pick up there, for a reason, the highest point that you could take right there as a price tag. What might they be willing to settle for if they are at a point here where they just kind of need to rid themselves of the situation altogether?
Well, you asked for a 1 because why would you ask for something less? I mean, that's
no question.
Obvious. And what you're saying is it's a good question. How badly do they want to rid themselves of what has become an untenable situation? Would it be a 2? A 3 would be tough. Someone told me that sort of that they would find a way to make it work here if all they got was a 3. That they're just not going to dump him. But then when you get there, and again, moving forward with the player who simply doesn't want to be here. I thought the most obvious sign of that was a few weeks ago when he was away from camp to rehab on his own. If that's not a slap at the organization, the rehab staff, and the medical people, what was it? So, yeah, I don't know what their bottom line is, and I know I've been told they're not going to just dump him. But that could be posturing, and when it comes time, you may say we're better off getting this, a 3. I don't know. It'd be hard to see them getting only a 3, accepting only a 3 for Taylor. But how badly would it be if he's still here? And one thing that people need to quit is that they kind of diminish the kind of player this kid is. He's an elite talent at his position. He is. He didn't have a trash season last year. He had it certainly didn't measure up to 2021, but he averaged 4.5 a carry, 800 and some yards in 11 games in a totally dysfunctional offense. and all the other circus stuff that was going on. So, and he's 24 for crying out loud. But it's going to take that right situation, and it really, from listening to Miami, the media down there, however they're connected, that there is a strong interest. And can you imagine Jonathan Taylor in that offense? Holy mackerel!
Do they run down there because they don't have the talent to run, or because Mike McDaniel likes to pass much better?
Well, from what I've read, and I don't know that much about it, but apparently he's a run game guy. He just hasn't had the personnel. His personnel's not been for that.
Well, it's certainly nothing like that. There's no question. Yeah.
Right. But boy, you add into that offense where you've got to, really guard deep, and you can't crowd the box, or you're going to get burned deep, which you don't want to do. And all of a sudden, Taylor's running against light boxes. I mean, holy smokes! It's really enticing. And I saw someone mention the Eagles and what that could be, but. And again, here there's been talk. Does Anthony Richardson need him, or does he need Anthony Richardson? I think the quarterback needs the running back more. I think it will make his rookie season go easier if he's got another threat. I mean, defenses are not going to honor that RPO nearly as much if it's Richardson and Taylor as opposed to Richardson and Zach Moss or Deion Jackson. It's not the same. It's not. But they made this decision back in April or May that they weren't going to invest this year that kind of money in the running back, and that really is what set all this off.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59, he's with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Do you believe the profound effect, the ill profound effect that a lack of a Jonathan Taylor this offense is going to have, not just for the offense, but for, the gradual improvement of its rookie, very inexperienced quarterback? I mean, of all the things you could fall into to start this season with Anthony Richardson, this has to be among the worst. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, unless you want to lose an offensive lineman or two. Yeah, no question. Yeah, that's why I say it's so many times when you bring in the rookie quarterback, the team doesn't, have the right people, the right personnel, the right supporting cast around him, and that's why a lot of times it doesn't work. I go back to Jeff George. Who knows if that would have worked or not, but boy, they put him behind the eight ball by getting rid of Rison and Hinton to get him. So it's certainly not going to help Anthony Richardson, and they're gonna I don't say protect, but they're going to accentuate what Richardson does and sort of stay away from what he's not really ready to do yet. They're not going to have a major thick playbook for him, but no one can tell me that that it's going to be better to not have Taylor here. I don't believe that. I mean, a happy Taylor, a contented Taylor here. I don't believe that at all. But at the same time, I keep thinking about when you make somebody do something because you can. I can. You've got to come to work at 4:00 in the morning because I'm your boss. So I'm telling you to. Well, what kind of an employee do you have? And that is what JT is. That's what all these guys are. They're employees. As much. And there've been some shots at Ursine. I understand that. How he treats players poorly and all this, and that's just wrong. The problem is everything now is being shown through the prism of Jonathan Taylor, and I understand that. Don't. It's hard for the owner to say, "Hey, we have a history of taking care of our players," which they do, but not JT. So it's apples and oranges when it comes to that. But it's not. This is not going to be a better team on the field with a locked in Jonathan Taylor. But boy, if it comes to where you make a player come here and play, stay here and play, maybe he misses the first 4 games on pup with that ankle or whatever. At some point, if there's no trade, he has to play, because if he doesn't, we're back here next year. And he's going to be a year older and will not have played for like a year and a half.
Yeah, so, and then he misses out on a year of service, too. And that service time is important to him, so, yeah.
And that's $4 million you don't get back. So, but the idea of forcing a guy, Rick Venturi tried to do that with Eric Dickerson. It didn't work. they ended up suspending him when Eric refused to practice. And Venturi said, I'm the head coach, doggone it. You're going to do what I tell you. And they suspended him. So it's just difficult when you force a guy to do something that he clearly doesn't want to do. And that's what was so crazy when we talked to Irsay at training camp is, it's always like, we love Jonathan, yes, and all this. And we hope this works out because we really look forward to him being out there with Anthony Richardson. And he mentions, Falk and Peyton Manning. And all Taylor is hearing is, so you want to wear my butt out being part of this offense, yet you're not going to pay me? And I understand him hearing that. But the fact is he signed a 4-year contract, and the timing on so many levels and so many different issues couldn't be worse. So they sort of said, well, here, if you can find a trade partner, knock yourself out. Now, Taylor would much rather have had this option in March or April when they could have done that. You really limit your options when everybody has their rosters pretty well put together. You already spent money on the free agents you wanted to, but it only takes 1 or 2 teams to make a deal. I'll tell you, for the Colts, if they find 2 or 3 teams with a serious interest, then maybe they get closer to that compensation that they really want.
You think Jonathan Taylor, as many people have said to me, and of which I don't think I buy it in terms of teammates and how they feel about him and what he's doing right now, but people have suggested, why is he in Philly? Why is he with the team? He shouldn't be allowed to hang out with them. He's a detriment to them and their morale right now. I don't happen to think his teammates view him in that fashion like the fans and others might right now. Would you agree?
I agree. It really, there may be a few players who aren't really on board with this, but you talk to most players and, hey, that's his business, that's his contract, it's his money he's dealing with, and they really let players handle their own business. He's in Philly because he's a member of the team, and they're going to make him go there, which whether that's being hard asses or not, I don't know. But I think they've been, in a few instances, very, very lenient about things. Again, allowing him to rehab on his own that week. We mentioned it. I can't remember the last time that's happened. And I'm sure the team could have said, no, you're not. You're part of our team. You're going to work out with our people. They didn't do that, and it didn't really matter. That's why I say it seems like in his mind, he's done. He's done. I think, again, when he got the word that they were not going to extend him and they'll talk contract at the end of the season, it's obvious to me that he viewed that as a major betrayal of trust. And then here we are. So, again, when you have that type of disdain for our team and the situation, how do you patch it up and say, okay, I'm going to play and we'll deal with this next year? Now, Edgerrin comes to mind, and I talked to Edgerrin about this, and he wanted a new contract too and didn't get one, and they franchised him. And he came in, worked his ass off and got a 4-year, $30 million contract from Arizona the next year. Now, it's different because Edgerrin had played, I think it was 6 years or whatever, 6 or 7 years here. And Taylor's played 3, so it's not quite the same. And Falk's not quite the same because he had played like 5 years. But, the important thing I think for everybody is this will be resolved by next Tuesday, or he's on PUP, which is still a possibility. People, we need to keep in mind that any team trading for him has to believe or have some belief that he's healthy. And he's not been on the practice field since December. And this is after surgery in January that was supposed to be cleared up in, I don't know.
If he signed this afternoon, do you think he would play tomorrow or practice tomorrow? Because I do.
I do, but
I know it's dangerous territory. I know.
I know it is, and I've gone too far a few times where hinting that it's a hold-in, not hinting, but saying it, and I shouldn't. That's not fair. All I know is that everything you hear is that this should. Even he said things were done perfectly and all this, and again, whether he aggravated it while rehabbing or whatever, I don't know. And part of the issue is we've not heard from Taylor since the offseason or since OTAs or minicamp, whatever it was. So when you don't have all the facts, there's speculation, and that's a dangerous road to go down. Now, there's every possibility that we never talk to that kid again here as a Colt.
Yeah. No.
So we'll see.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, and you get the Colts and the Eagles in that final preseason game. And there is a deadline looming regarding Jonathan Taylor here at some point, and the Colts situation with their running back. And Mike talked about that again on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike, I appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll do it again next week.
Talk to you then.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. Kind of curious what they may end up settling on. Seems like that's the path in which they're taking right now. Quick break. We'll come back. Some of your thoughts via X and or Twitter. We'll get to your calls too. And Josh Tolentino of the Philadelphia Inquirer chimes in about the game tonight as well. Prepared for this, and then the 5 o'clock hour gets you into the Colts pregame huddle. Talk about that as well coming up too. 93.5 107. Mike Chappell a little bit earlier, podcast 1075thefan.com, and actor Michael Rooker was on here. He's going to be in town this weekend and is familiar with Indy, by the way. Has been here a couple of different times, even beyond 8 Men Out. The former Walking Dead star, Guardians of the Galaxy and more. That podcast with a great conversation with Michael Rooker, available 1075thefan.com. Meantime, Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. He's from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Eagles coverage he gives, and Josh Tolentino joins us right now. Hello, Josh. How are you doing?
JMV, pleasure to join you ahead of the preseason finale tonight, if you want to call it that. A lot of fireworks obviously occurred here the other day involving these two teams, so it should be a doozy.
Hey, you were on site, I believe. A little bit about that, and I guess it depends on who was. Everybody was involved, I guess, the way it was described to me, almost everybody. Could there be a bit of a boil over this evening from what took place a couple of days ago in that get-together?
Not necessarily. Maybe if these reserve players are still kind of holding on those ill feelings. But, at the end of the day, these guys that are actually going to be playing tonight are fighting for their NFL lives. So it'd be silly of them to, escalate or continue what happened on Tuesday, because that really occurred between, some top players of both teams. Obviously, Zaire Franklin, a Philly native, and Jason Kelsey were the main culprits there. But I don't necessarily anticipate any spillover. Definitely on the Eagles side, certainly the starters are not playing. So I think that's going to, largely factor into that question.
What'd you see in those combined practices that you witnessed the other day when that whole fight happened, and then it ended obviously abruptly with that brawl, and practice was over in that fashion? But what'd you see on both sides of the football, especially from a Colts standpoint, that Colts fans would be interested in, or maybe Colts fans, Josh, may be disappointed in?
Yeah, JMV, I'll kind of paint the picture for you here, but it was almost, I'd consider it the climax of the summer. Just definitely the most exciting action we've seen, and you certainly saw it brewing. And I'll start with an instigator from the Eagles, and he's built a reputation, in the city and really with the league, with the officials, in terms of his actions after the whistle. Derek Barnett, infamously, famously, whoever you ask, recovered the fumble in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. But Derek Barnett, there were a couple instances on Tuesday when, most notably, when he hit Anthony Richardson's hand. And, that's a no-no during training camp. And, the quarterbacks are definitely supposed to be off limits in terms of no contact. That's the big reason why they wear that red jersey. And, so Derek Barnett stretching the unwritten rules there of making contact with AR. And, that happened right in front of the Colts sideline, too. So certainly took a lot of willpower to do that. But that was really the first kind of big scuffle or incident. And then a couple plays or a couple series later, Jason Kelsey just getting the best of him, and with his emotions he had discussed afterwards with shoving Zaire Franklin to the ground, essentially ran over him from behind. Zaire had no idea that Kelsey was, going to be making contact with him. And there were certainly some after fireworks on the previous play, but just a spillover, a big snowball effect from the practice. And it sucks that, depending on your fan perspective, that you don't get to see the starters go after each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a baseball reference. If you're, if you beam me, I'm going to beam you in terms of, hitting the other guy. So, but again, like what we mentioned earlier, a lot of guys fighting for their NFL lives tonight. So I would be very surprised if we saw any spillover.
Josh Tolentino covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He will be there this evening. He joins us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. So no starters at all from an Eagles standpoint. Is that what we're looking at?
There's discussion from what I heard. I checked in with a couple people close around the team this morning, last night. Where there might be a couple personnel playing. They want to see more reps specifically from the linebackers and safety pairings. But the main offensive starters, I'm talking like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, obviously Jalen Hurts, they will not be playing based on everything that we've been told. But who I am excited to see, though, is AR. Not that many people get treated to, seeing a top pick like him. And
well, the fan base here was very excited to see him on Saturday, and they decided at the last minute, or not at the last minute, but didn't tell him until the last minute he didn't play. So, yeah, that's what we got here.
Okay, well, we'll see if he's out there. But
no, he's going to be out there tonight. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, and the weather kind of factors in. It's raining right now. Kickoff's obviously in a couple hours, so we'll see if it subsides. But what we saw on Tuesday and, that limited brief practice, AR was slinging the thing. He's going up against these top cornerbacks, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, considered a top, top 3, top 5 duo in the league. And he was putting the ball in some nice spots for his receivers. He hit Alec Pierce, I remember, vividly during a 7-on-7 period. So certainly some talent there, if you're a Colts fan, to be excited about just from a visiting perspective.
From watching that, and I know it was just one practice right there that you saw, but with his capabilities at times of getting it in there, I mentioned this earlier, what I want to watch for from a Colts standpoint, Josh, tonight is the skill position players, and they're put in situations to where they have to make catches outside what is their normal catch radius or catch window. I mean, tough catches. And notoriously speaking, this group and groups of the past really haven't done that. I think it's going to be incredibly necessary for the growth of this rookie quarterback that's so inexperienced to see that group be able to do that. Did it look to you like that they had capabilities of it when you watched them the other day?
A bit. You certainly saw them trying to, create separation off what many would consider one of the top cornerback pairings in the league, and James Bradbury and Darius Slay, both have, complementing skill sets in terms of what they do on the field. James Bradbury, a very big, physical, tough zone corner. Darius Slay, he's ready to go mano-a-mano with you. And you certainly saw glimpses of that, but just in comparison to what you just spoke about, John, is you look at Jalen Hurts' trajectory in his second season. Really, you consider his rookie year, since his actual rookie year, he didn't really play until the end of the season. But when he took over the full reins as the starter, you look at the advanced analytics of that receiver group that he was playing with. That was Devontae Smith's rookie year. They still had Jalen Reagor on the team. But the receivers that he was playing with, they were, in terms of separation and, again, the advanced stats, I want to say they were literally towards the bottom of the league in terms of creating separation and the ability for Hurts in this instance to make those throws. So Shane Steichen, Chris Bell, they're going to have to certainly address the personnel in terms of supporting AR with a good cast. You look at the Eagles roster. Hurts is a big part of the train that goes, but he's certainly supported by one of the best rosters in the league, and it's going to be a process for a team like the Colts to get there. But you like the intrigue with the talent, certainly the arm with AR from what we've seen in that one practice.
Josh Tolentino of the Philadelphia Inquirer covers the Eagles on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Eagles and Colts tonight. Again, we come with the pregame coverage, top of the hour with me, Casey Valier, and former Colts wide receiver Bill Brooks here on the Colts pregame huddle. There's been rumors, and the rumors are floating everywhere regarding Jonathan Taylor right now. But I saw some rumored interest from an Eagles standpoint. Is there at all that there from what you gather?
Yeah, the team has certainly checked in. I wouldn't be able to gauge the exact interest, but anytime a talented player there, such as the skill set of Jonathan Taylor, and even the experience between the two teams. Nick Sirianni, obviously being a former Colts on the Colts coaching staff, a lot of familiarity there. And anytime thought the Eagles running back room was set, after losing a key piece in Miles Sanders, had been the lead back here for the past 3-4 years. And, now they've got, they add DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny in the offseason. Kenneth Gainwell is gaining steam here. Then here you are at the end of camp, and a guy like JT becomes available. So the team has certainly checked in. And if they were to acquire a talent like that, it's difficult. When you look at the finances part of it, the contractual obligations that are going to have to be handed out to Jonathan Taylor, the Eagles certainly have the draft capital to swing a move like that. Even you're talking about like a day 2 pick, depending on value, but making the money work, it's such a league-wide trend, especially in Philadelphia. You look at Miles Sanders' contract, what he got this year. I think he's at around a $6-7 million annual average. The entire Eagles running back room, like I'm talking about all 6 guys on the 90-man roster right now, they're making less than what Miles Sanders is making. Obviously only 3-4 of those guys will make the roster. So the allocation part is what worries me if you're thinking about that possibility.
Yeah, and I mean you'd have to double that in an extension too, to with the Taylor interest. But it's just you kind of look at Nick Sirianni, you look at that dynamic, and then obviously I've said this, and I want to get your opinion on it, Josh. You bring up Miles Sanders, who rushed for over 1,200 yards, and certainly. You look at the offense and the offensive line, the skill position players, so incredibly talented and balanced right there. Even Jalen Hurts went for over 700 yards rushing a year ago. But how important was Miles Sanders? Because it's been my opinion here that in the development of Anthony Richardson, with all that inexperience, that a talented running back, a productive running back, is highly important for this development we're going to see in year number 1 for Richardson. How important was Sanders in that equation with that offense we saw go to the Super Bowl a year ago?
Yeah, certainly early on, you think about Shane Steichen and what he did, specifically for Hurts, tailoring that zone read, RPO, heavy offense for Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. Miles, he did tail off towards the end of the year. I think he still had above a 5-yard average in terms of yards per carry. So it's a tough question, but certainly Shane has shown, in the offenses that he's been with, that he tailors, play on words here, but tailors the offensive playbook towards the quarterback's strengths. And, that's something that you should expect there in Indianapolis. But in terms of Miles, you see the treatment that they gave him in the offseason. He was essentially begging. I'm talking, John, begging, throughout the postseason. During his weekly availabilities late in the year, December, January, like, I want to stay here. This is where I want to be. This is the only place I know. And you see what the Eagles did in the offseason, adding 2 guys not named Miles Sanders to the roster. So, allocation there is definitely a tough thing, getting back to the Jonathan Taylor point.
I mean, did they want a single back to have the type of rushing production that he had a year ago, or are they looking for it in a combined effort all the way around? Because it was often mentioned, it was a combined effort last year. While he was still the main figure with the 1,200-plus yards rushing that I would deem important, even if your quarterback goes for over 700, as Hurts did a year ago.
Yeah, no, Nick Sirianni claims that they're working towards a committee approach, but at the end of the day, I think they're going to have a lead horse, and the top 2 candidates for that are DeAndre Swift, who makes his homecoming here to Philadelphia from Detroit, and Kenny Gainwell heading into his 3rd year. We've seen him exclusively be the team's featured running back in 2-minute instances, in goal line packages. So they have some change of pace guys. Rashad Penny, Boston Scott in there at the goal line, the veteran, but I'd expect DeAndre Swift or Kenneth Gainwell, if we're talking, who's getting the bulk of the carries. And I think it will be drastic, like what you mentioned. Nick Sirianni can claim the committee approach all he wants, and that's what he did last year. In the past couple of years, and we've seen Miles Sanders take that heavy workload. Jalen Hurts, like what you mentioned, plays a big picture in that outcome. Hey,
enjoy a lot of Ian Book tonight, right?
Oh, man, Ian Book. Hot topic out here. He's was a serviceable, third string backup last year with Minshew in the room, and he just looked. I mean, you could use whatever adjective you want, but did not look good in that preseason opener. It was almost surprising that he didn't play at all in last week's game with the Cleveland Browns, but certainly expect him to see some time here in the second half.
Hey, fantastic work, Josh. I appreciate you hopping on here before a game on this Thursday. It's in Philly, obviously, tonight with the Colts and the Eagles. You got it right here, and Josh Tolentino writes regarding the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. We'll do this again down the road, man. I appreciate you, Josh. Thank you very much.
JMV, hit me up anytime. It was a pleasure.
You got it. Again. Josh Tolentino. It's really good. Philadelphia Inquirer. Man, it's a good day to squeeze really good stuff in. Josh Tolentino, Mike Chappell, and actor Michael Rooker. Podcast 1075thefan.com. Stuff to win, and we'll get you set for the Colts pregame huddle, which is coming up at 5 o'clock. 93.5, 1075.
7-5, The Fan.
Oh, man, what a good 2 hours right there. I love that. Podcast with Josh Tolentino of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Mike Chappell, of course, of CBS 4 and Fox 59. And Michael Rooker, the actor. Second time on the show. Is going to be in town this weekend for PopCon down at the Convention Center. Spent a lot of time in Indy over the years, too. Originally from Chicago. But what a good dude, too. So if you get down there this weekend, make sure you tell him that you heard him here and hello. Just what a fantastic interview. Again, if you missed any of those, that is 1075thefan.com. Number 9 right now at 239-1070. Number 9 is going to get, I think, a family 4-pack. That's what this is, right? Hoosier Hardwood Festival. Boone County Fairgrounds. Jake Query, in fact, for the noon show. Going to be out there coming up tomorrow. But a family 4-pack, you get chainsaws, you get a water skiing squirrel. I mean, hell, I can't even get the squirrels to get out of my way when I'm going down my road half the time. And I'm the one dodging them. I don't want to hit a squirrel like Costanza, but you'll get to see the water ski. I think Twiggy is the squirrel's name. Seriously. It's going to be a great time out there. Family 4-pack of tickets for you. Number 9 at 239-1070. Hey, tomorrow's show, by the way, this reminder, it is once again a tavern tour stop. We're going to be at Union Jack Pub in Broad Ripple tomorrow. So I've already invited everybody except for the turds inside the lounge via YouTube Live. The jerks aren't allowed to go, but everybody else in there normally is really cool. You're allowed to go, and you remember the samples. Brent Holverson, our betting analyst, is going to be there. It is going to be Sample City in Broad Ripple tomorrow, beginning at 3. A recap of tonight's game. Get everybody's angle on that. And I think Ted Kitchell's going to join me coming up tomorrow. There's a golf outing for Ted coming up on Monday. I want to make sure a lot of the IU folks are aware of that and for the reason of it. I think Ted's going to join us on the show at some point tomorrow. And the triumphant return of Don Fisher in the 5 o'clock hour coming up tomorrow. The voice of the Hoosiers. What an outstanding day. This has been James. Great job. Josh Tolentino. Mike Chappell and actor Michael Rooker. Podcast 1075thefan.com. Former Colts wide receiver Bill Brooks in studio. Casey Valier's here. I'm going to stick and stay until 7 as well. The Colts pregame huddle, that's next right here. 93.5